Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. This morning, I want to welcome two representatives from the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Rion Boyk and Sanjeev Boodoo. Good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we doing this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Very well.
Well, I appreciate you guys waking up early to join us on set this morning. I understand that you're having the Inaugural Law Conference at the end of this week. Tell me a little bit about Law Week and why we're having this Inaugural Law Conference.
Sure. So this is the Law Association's first Law Week and first Law Conference. The conference is designed to consider and present on the recent developments in jurisprudence. The featured speaker or keynote speaker is Professor Tracy Robinson. The conference is on Thursday and Friday of this week. And from today on to Thursday, the Law Association will be engaged in various forms of outreach in respect of the public awareness, education on law, and again, recent developments in jurisprudence.
And why is it important for us to start this? Why is it important for the Law Association to present this Law Week?
I am of the view that it is important for the Law Association to continue to have conversations with the public, to engage the public, to get feedback from the public, because lawyers cannot operate in a vacuum. They represent clients. We have to understand what are the needs of the clients, and we have to educate and inform the public on what is happening within the Law Association and Trinidad and Tobago's jurisprudence.
All right, so I understand as well, Rion, that we're having award ceremony as part of the celebration as well. Tell me about the award ceremony.
So it is traditional to honor those practitioners who have been at the bar for 50 years.
Okay.
Yes, so this is a way just to honor them, to recognize their contribution, and also for the junior members to have an opportunity to interact and to socialize with very senior practitioners.
Okay. And this conference and dinner is only for lawyers, or everybody's invited, or how?
No, the conference is open to non-members as well.
Okay.
And actually non-members can also accompany a member to the dinner.
Okay, fantastic. Now, I understand that if you guys don't mind, we could break down a little some of the law stuff, because I know people get confused oftentimes and they have lots of questions. Just now we had a WPC on with us, and she was saying that, we should seek legal representation if you're going to report certain crimes or whatever the case is, especially if you want justice. But a lot of things people don't even think about going to lawyers for. Let's talk property, for example.
Indeed.
So if it is a property owner passes away, what is the legal process?
Exactly. So what now? What are the next steps? So, after the confusion, the uncertainty,
the grief,
the unhappy event of death, loved ones are, generally unsure, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we have to look to see, okay, so how is this person owning this property? We have different types of ownership. Could have been a sole owner or perhaps together with other persons. Another important aspect to consider, did this person make a will? Did they set out their wishes? Did they appoint somebody to handle this process of dealing with their assets? And how do we vest those assets in their named beneficiaries?
Just to interject here, I guess, at this point.
Yes.
Would you recommend that we make wills? At what point in your life should you be thinking about, I should have a will?
I think that once you have loved ones and relatives, I think it is important to consider what happens after you die. In that you should think about what do you want to do with your property, what arrangements do you want to make on them. And it makes the process so much simpler if we can look to a document that sets out exactly what your intentions are regarding what you own and who are the persons that you would like to make these gifts upon.
So Sanjeev, what is the process if I don't have a will? What does that process look like?
Well, that is called intestacy, where there's an absence of the will. So the law says that your spouse is entitled to 50% of your estate, and your children the other 50% in equal share. And of course, the law breaks down if you have no children, but you have a spouse. If you have children, but no spouse.
Right.
If you had a common law relation and therefore not a spouse. The law sets it out, what happens on intestacy. But as Rion said, it is desirable or advisable that you set it out yourself. Prepare your will, take steps to get involved in estate planning, set out what you would like to happen.
And in terms of what does that look like, what does that cost? Because I think that's often a factor for people is like, they feel their mortality when you tell them to do a will. and everybody gets a little bit uncomfortable, like, what, you're trying to kill me? Oh, I still have some life in me. But I understand the importance of it because, one, we never know when it's going to happen. And it's important for us to be able to say, well, this is the path that we have to go down. But what does it cost to be able to do something like that?
Well, to create a will is not very expensive. It would, of course, depend on the extent to which the will details your assets and your instructions and your wishes. Obviously, the larger your estate is and the more beneficiaries you have, your will might tend to get complex in terms of various properties, banking accounts, insurance policies, all of that. But a simple will ought not to be prohibitive in terms of cost. And the probate process or the administration of an estate process is set out in law. The Wills and Probate Act sets out maximum fees that attorneys can charge. So it is not an arbitrary calculation.
Right.
Seniority, for example, has nothing to do with the type of fees that are chargeable on estate applications.
But it's a percentage of what the estate is worth or something like that?
It is a decreasing percentage scale.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, that whole estate things get very, very touchy. And we see lots of people getting very, very touchy about it, especially because sometimes they don't always know the information, but it's good that they can have it. How long does that process take when you probate in a will? Because I saw recently there was a whole heap of people that were complaining that it was taking too long to get through with their will.
Indeed. The preparation process need not be extensively long. Unfortunately, the probate registry, which is the department which is responsible for just reviewing, vetting, and ultimately issuing the relevant grants, I would want to respectfully suggest that perhaps the resources with which they have perhaps are not sufficient to deal with the volume of the applications that are filed. The complexity of the applications and, the nature of the application is such that you have to vet very strictly, very carefully. You have to be precise. So it results in a delay, I would say perhaps not necessarily on the part of the person at the registry, but just again due to just the complexity and the nature of the applications themselves, that they need to be certain that when they issue a grant that it can stand up to scrutiny and not have any doubt cast upon it.
Are there many instances of fraud that take place in this regard?
I would say perhaps after the process has been completed, you would find that perhaps beneficiaries or other interested persons who may have a genuine claim on the estate may discover that the person whom, let's say, for example, if someone would have made a will and appointed a person who is known as the executor to manage this process and ensure that their wishes are fulfilled, may perhaps would not have complied strictly with the wishes as stated in the will, and therefore they would be entitled now to seek redress from the court in that regard.
These topics are going to be covered in the conference as well, or not so much?
Not so much. Not so much.
What's some of the topics that we covered in the conference?
Well, again, the conference is related to the developing jurisprudence within the Commonwealth Caribbean and within Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
So there are some novel areas that involves, for example, cybersecurity and how the law relates to developments therein, how our society has to plan in terms of preparing and drafting legislation to address cybersecurity issues, that type of thing. The conference will not be a repetition of law school.
Okay.
It's not set to retrain and retool lawyers for what is already established. It is more attuned to planning for the future.
So where are we when it comes to that sort of cybercrime law and that sort of thing?
We are not where we need to be, if I'm honest. But it is my observation that we have great intentions to get there and get there soon. And of course, the Law Association plays a pivotal part in the preparation of legislation. The Law Association is generally consulted by the Parliament, by the legislature, on new legislation, amendments to legislation, that sort of thing. So the Law Association does have a role to play, and the members, of course, have a role to play.
Definitely. Now, I want to jump to a different topic altogether because one of the things that people often seek lawyers for is advice when it comes to situations like domestic violence. So tell me, first of all, as far as the law is concerned, what is domestic violence?
Well, domestic violence, first of all, is covered by the Domestic Violence Act.
Right.
There is a particular and specific piece of legislation that deals with domestic violence. And it includes physical, emotional, financial abuse. And the Act seeks to cover abuse that might be suffered by members of a family, parents, children, any dependents or members of a household generally.
And what sort of relief is offered to domestic violence victims?
But the most common relief is a protection order. That is generally what is granted on a successful application on evidence for a protection order, for domestic violence, I should say. However, one can obtain orders relating to finances or exclusion orders. For example, if you have a situation where someone is being financially abused, an order can be granted for the financial care of that person, continued support. A lot of the times you have applicants who, well, victims of domestic violence, I should say, who are fearful or hesitant to apply for a protection order because they may be financially dependent on their partner,
right,
on their spouse, and it happens both for men and women. The court does take that into consideration. If you're being financially abused, there can be maintenance orders, so to speak, put in place for an applicant or a child.
In terms of these, I often, we see these protection orders get put in place, and sometimes the abusers override them or the abusers violate the protection orders. What is a victim to do in that situation? Where you went out and you did the thing the right way, you went and you got the orders, you went through the court process and everything, and this person is still coming into your space where they ought not to be.
Yeah, and it happens far too often. You are right. When a breach of a protection order occurs, first and foremost, the law sets out that it is punishable as a criminal offense.
Right.
And it carries with it a maximum of 5 years in certain circumstances of imprisonment. But the first thing any person who's experienced a breach of protection order should do is contact the police immediately. And the Act sets out what steps the police can take, which are different to a report on a regular crime.
And is it different for married couples versus unmarried couples?
No, as long as you have a relationship with someone, particularly where you are cohabiting, you're covered under the Act. You are entitled to file an application for a protection order or any orders that fall under the Domestic Violence Act, as long as you are a victim of some type of abuse that is covered under the Act.
And it's all covered, and once it's covered under the Act, it should be covered. So just head to the police station and make your report, and it will be dealt with accordingly.
Well, we could talk about that. Making a report to the police is one thing. The fact of domestic violence having occurred.
Right.
The other step that needs to happen is that you need to file a complaint in the court. The police cannot do that for you. They can take your report, they can give you a receipt, and that report might assist you in obtaining a protection order. But you need to make a complaint on oath before the court to initiate the proceedings.
How do you initiate that part of things? Do you walk into the court and say, I would like to make a thing, or do I have to get an attorney and then go through a different process?
You do not need to get an attorney. An attorney might assist the process in terms of time and the proper ventilation of all the issues to ensure that the order is comprehensive enough, particularly to suit your needs in terms of protection. But you can, and practically speaking, you can approach the courts through its online portal, ttlawcourts.org, sets out domestic violence, email addresses, hotlines. An applicant can contact the court directly and have a complaint filed, and proceed to court and obtain an order without the involvement of an attorney.
Okay, well, I think this is very valuable information we've been receiving here this morning. And I know this coming Friday, I believe it is, the 11th of October.
Yes.
We'll be heading to the Hyatt Regency because we have the theme Recent Developments in Local and Regional Jurisprudence, as you mentioned before. We also have the awards and dinner that's happening. It's a black tie event. How much are tickets and how can we get them?
So we have different prices for the different members. So for the junior members, the tickets are priced at $800, and for the senior practitioners at $1,200.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us this morning, and congratulations on the Inaugural Law Week. I know the law conference is going to be amazing. We look forward to hearing more about it, yeah?
Hope to see you.
Hope to see you.
I mean, I hope I could be there. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But thank you guys so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you
Rion
very
Boyk,
much.
ladies and gentlemen, and Sanjeev Boodoo, representing the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago. We'll take a quick break and we come back with more. Stay tuned.
Come and talk to your man a while now. You know I love you.